Icon Comic Con presents Behind the Comic Book Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. 845 here, and we're interviewing some more comic book creators, artists, and writers, all for our Icon Comic Con coming up November the 1st, 2025. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Right now, if you go to iconcomiccon.com, tickets are only $5, so check it out. But first and foremost, somebody that's been with us since the beginning, John, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, I'm John Bruggman. I'm a comic book cover artist, so I've been doing this professionally since 2022. I did my first cover. Been traveling to shows all across the East Coast since then. Worked with companies like Image, Aftershock, Mad Cave, Tidal Wave, and just love drawing and painting.
Nice, yeah. And I could speak to a lot of his art. I've seen it. I've also purchased some of it. If I'm not mistaken, I have. You guys have been, between you and Kevin, you guys have been at a bunch of my shows, so I want to make sure that I support you guys. But more about you, John. So what kind of got you into the realm of drawing and creating art?
Yeah, so I'd always been really into art, but never thought I could really make a career out of it until I got to like maybe junior year of high school,
Okay.
and my art teacher really pushed me to do art and like challenged me a lot. And getting into like spring and late spring of that year, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it. And then started looking at colleges, started showing off my portfolio for that, and then next thing I know, I'm looking at schools, looking at art programs, and building up confidence that way. And then started art school and just never really looked back after that.
Yeah. And so, like, let me ask you a question. When you were growing up, I know that you kind of got influenced into art. Was art always something that you wanted to do? Or as you know, when you were growing up, you were like, I want to be a police officer or something like that. What was the first thing that you wanted to be?
Funny you say that. I actually wanted to be a police officer.
Oh,
My dad
okay,
was a
good.
police officer, so I was like, we always grew up around police officers. There's a barracks like a half mile from our house, so and that's all we ever really talked about with my dad. But um, he always had like comic books, and we were always talking about art and always drawing. And my grandmother was an artist, my cousin's an artist, so art was always there, but it wasn't like the first thing I looked at right away until I had a couple other people start like trying to point me in that direction.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's always that influence, that thing that kind of draws you, no pun intended, to the art field. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah.
so when you talk about art, what's the first thing that you like comic book related that you kind of just were like, you know what, I'm gonna try drawing this, and then somebody was like, dude, you gotta take this to the next level because you're, doing some great stuff.
So there's kind of two instances. So when I was in middle school, how I got into comics, my dad had a Venom commission from an artist named John Herbert, and it's a simple headshot from like here up, and it's like a three-quarter angle. And I was like, I want to draw that. And I failed over and over and over again. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna keep doing this till I get it. And finally, I figured out how to draw a Venom with a slight three-quarter headshot, with no tongue and just a big smile. And I was like, that was a lot of fun. Now, how can I keep doing art? The second was just, I don't really know how to explain it. I've always liked the challenge of taking something, looking something, or giving a story and trying to figure out a way to put that on pen to paper, or figuring out ways to creatively solve a problem without using words or text or trying to describe it, me talking to you, but just strictly visually.
Yeah, no, I mean that's comic books in and of itself, right? Now, as a cover artist, I know that you also do other things. If somebody wanted to work with you, if they wanted to sign you to, like, do a commission or anything like that, what are the best ways to kind of get in touch with you to kind of work with you and see your art?
So I have an Instagram. It's John Bruggman, at or just at John Bruggman, all one word. that's a really good way to contact me. Facebook, I think, is how you reached out to me. So that's a very good way. I'm on Whatnot, or try to be at least, and my username for that's just Bruggman, just my last name. And then you can reach out via email. It's little inconsistent when it comes to people reaching out that way, but also I use that more for like talking with editors and stuff.
Okay. And we'll capture all that stuff, or you'll send it to me after, so that way I can make sure that it's in this video. And I just want to make sure that people kind of know how, how to work with you if they ever wanted to order anything from you, stuff like that. So going through the path of, your art journey, tell me, like, when did you start going through the comic book tour? Like, when did you start like saying, you know what, I'm going to take the show on the road, and I'm going to start like trying to sell my art to these different outlets?
So I went to a very small con in Buffalo. It's like a 1 day show they put on once a month. And there's a guy who presses and cleans comic books, and he cleaned one of my comics for me, and I sent it off to grading and all that. And my dad's like, "Hey, you should show him this picture you drew. I drew like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and he's like doing a skateboarding thing where he's like doing a handstand, and he's got the doing like a weird kickflip kind of thing." He's like, "You should show that to him." I'm like, "Okay, sure." So I showed it to him, and he's like, "Hey, that's actually like really good. You should come out to my small convention that I do out of the backyard of my house. Mike Grell's going to be there, and like three other comic shops are going to be there. You should come out and do it." I was like, "Sure, why not?" I sold my first ever original drawing there. And I think I sold two there that weekend. And then, like a month after that, one of the shops was there, invited me to do a store signing and just get me in front of people and do drawings that way. We did like a Facebook Live thing before Whatnot was actually a thing, and then built up a really good relationship with that shop. And then just one thing led to another very, very quickly with that shop, with getting publishing work, meeting editors, other artists. That's how I met Kevin. And it happened like all within the course of like a year, or not even, like from summer to October, I had like my first cover
Nice.
after just showing a guy a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle drawing.
So what was the first cover?
First cover, so it's there's a little bit of a debacle with it. The first cover I ever painted for publishing was Bunny Mask Hollow Inside #1. I painted it in my common room in between, or in like fall semester, and painted that, got it approved, got it ready to go to publishing, and then they kept delaying the book over and over again. The shop said, "Hey, we want to try and get you an Image title, really build your career right off the start, but you can't be published through Image unless you had prior publishing work." So technically, they said I was published, but the book hadn't come out yet. So I ended up getting approved to go through Image to do a book called Slumber. And then the book ended up getting printed and released before the first cover I drew. So it's like a weird, like, I drew this one first and got approved first, but this one technically got released first, and they came out like a month apart. So there's a weird, like, I want to say the Bunny Mask one was my first drawn and first published, but the one came out beforehand. It's weird. I don't know. I usually just say one of those two.
Okay. Now I like to ask like different types of questions to kind of see like what inspired you, what drew you to art and stuff like that. And we kind of went into that. So now let's talk about your style a little bit. So if you wanted to be able to explain your style to people, what type of art style would you have? Digital, traditional? What's your color composition or texture? Like, do you do all just inking and then you also do the coloring? What do you do?
So I like to call it mixed media. So I use a wide range of materials. So traditionally, I'll start off with digitals for layouts and kind of getting a rough idea of what I want to do, layouts, compositions, proportions, and all that. When I get happy with that, I'll then go into a screen printing technique that I learned in school. I'll screen print all my stuff, and then I'll strictly work in black and white for my traditional work. I'll use inks, I'll use acrylic, I'll use artist crayons, colored pencils. And then when I'm happy with the black and whites, then I'll move into colors digitally. I've just found colors are not my strong suit. And it takes me a little bit longer to color than to do a black and white piece. So that's kind of my artistic process. And I think like my like three biggest influences I would say are Simon Bisley and Glenn Fabry. Um, they do a lot with like realism, but making it abstract and absurd and like that 90s metal punk kind of era.
Hmm.
And then Bill Sienkiewicz would probably be my third influence just because he works in so many different mediums. And also, I like how his approach to each character has such a different way of looking at it that you never know what you're going to get, but you can always tell it's one of his drawings. And regardless if he draws the character one way and then a new story comes out and he looks completely different, you can still tell it's his style. So I like to try and approach all my characters with a different mindset coming in. So it's not the same boring kind of stale thing each time.
Yeah. Now, speaking of like your inspirations and kind of like the things that influence you, do you have a work that you have to say like this work that I did is like exquisite, like chef's kiss, like I blew my own mind doing this art.
Um, right now there's two for me, and I'll kind of cheat on it. I that last cover I did, the Fame Wes Craven, that for me was like me getting to show off what I like to do. I like the creepy stuff. I like the dark stuff. I like making everything weird, gory, and all that, and super high contrast. And it was two characters that I got to really play around with and love, and just show off like the style I like. My second piece would probably be the larger Rogue piece I did,
Okay.
just as a print. Um, I really struggle with drawing women. I don't know what it is. I really like the creepy, masculine kind of guys. And I really wanted to challenge myself at the end of last year to get better at drawing women. So I was like, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it right, do a big piece that way. And it's become like one of my favorites. Like, it's one of the few pieces I can constantly look back at and be like, I nailed it, and not like nitpick the crap out of it to the point where like, okay, I don't want to look at it anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's always like what's good is to see like some of the things that you're doing is you're conquering some of the things that you're weak on to really improve. So, it's something that to show that you want to continue to evolve your pieces. And a lot of the art that I'm seeing, like I'm on your page right now, I'm just kind of scrolling through. I mean, a lot of the horror ones you really like take it to the next level. I mean, the one that you're talking about that has the what's his name from Scream, right? If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken,
yeah,
the
Ghostface.
Ghostface. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you also have Freddy Krueger, alongside him. So it really kind of gives you that. And they haven't really made a Freddy Krueger movie in a while, and it's unfortunate because I would love to see
Oh yeah.
Freddy come back to fruition. I heard that they're supposed to be making a remake, but we'll see what happens with that. But the biggest thing that I want to make sure that people kind of see is like when it comes to getting into the comic scene and really kind of going through there and kind of showing your art and really kind of getting that influence, if you will. What are some of the pitfalls that you see as a new up and coming artist or established artist that you would probably recommend to people that are coming into the game and saying, hey, these are some of the things that I ran into. I want to kind of save you some of your grief, if you will. And this is kind of like what you should do to really get your exposure for your art.
Yeah. So for me, the one thing, there's like two things I really struggle with. One was how young I was when I first got into it. I drew my first cover when I was 21. So like being so young into it and not necessarily knowing how the industry works, just from a collecting standpoint, knowing how that works, is very intimidating because, like I said, I've never gotten into this. And one of the nicest things about the way I got into it was I had a mentor. So like Kevin kind of helped take me under his wing, kind of showed me what conventions were like, how to talk to people, how to like see who retailers are and understand how they work, and try and learn as much about the business from not just an artist point of view, but from the retailer's point of view to the consumer's point of view, to seeing what trends and what characters are popular at any given time. He kind of gave me the basis for that, and I kind of learned my way to approach it. And build off of that. And we still talk and travel and do all that together. So that was very helpful. And the second was like knowing my worth for a piece. So like for I think it was a show in Baltimore. I sold a sketch cover for way cheaper than I should have. And I didn't think of it at the time. I just knew, okay, this is what I've always charged. And my dad's like, no, you need to start upping your prices because you're becoming more of an established name. You're becoming a more recognized artist. Knowing your worth and knowing how much time you put into that piece, you should know how to charge yourself. So like there was a point I was doing sketch covers for like $40 because I didn't have anything to my name or credits or anything like that. And learning how to price myself and but also how to accommodate people and have a range of prices that people I can accommodate people with has been one of the things that I took away as well.
I mean, it's you get that in business all the time, right? Even small businesses that I've interviewed on my other podcast, a lot of times the biggest thing is making sure that you are charging your worth, right? So it's definitely something that's good advice for people to kind of really pick up. You know, when it comes to like a lot of the art, you know, the big things that I like to ask people as well is, you know, what drew you to art? Who was your inspiring artist? And you kind of what delved into that, but the more question that I usually ask, or the question that I usually ask on top of that one as like follow up, is if you could work with an artist currently operating right now, who would that artist be? Or if it's a colorist or a writer or book or publisher, what's your dream aspiration of what you would want to do?
Yeah, so like I kind of already talked about the whole who my inspirations are. Bisley was my big inspiration because up until like comics, I only saw like 60s and 70s and 90s work that was just line art. And
Mm-hmm.
when I saw his Lobo where it was fully painted, I was like, oh, I'm more of a painter. Like we can paint comics. And then I fell down a rabbit hole with that. And that's kind of how I moved more towards comics. And an artist I'd like to work with. Oh boy.
Or writer, or
Or writer.
yeah, or publisher, whatever works for you. I didn't
Still
say I
trying
was
to
going to
get
give you easy questions.
I'm still trying to get Kevin to me and him collab on a project that actually is official.
Okay.
Um I've wanted to do a Tinian book for like the longest time. Like been trying to make it happen for like 3 years now. And we've gotten to the point where I'm showing prelims off to the people or like retailers or and all that, and then it just kind of fizzles out or communication gets lost and all that. So I'd really like to work on like a Tinian book as a writer. Artist I'd like to collaborate with. Oh, that one's a little harder because I feel like because I do my entire work, like I pencil, I ink, I color and all that. It's a little harder to pick. Um, I'd want to work with somebody who has like a very different style than me. So like I do more of the realism style. If I can
Mhm.
find someone like on the more abstract end, I'd like to see how those kind of two styles mesh together, I guess.
I get you. I get you. So, you know, just putting it out there, if there's any abstract artists out there, John's looking for a collabo. So
Yeah.
let's make it happen. You know, I like to always ask these different questions because you never know what comes out of these interviews, right? And it's always about like promoting yourself and really kind of getting yourself out there. And you do that already. When you market yourself, what would you say is the best way as an artist to really market yourself the best, right? The most effective, the most efficient. Is it at cons? Is it on social media? Is it on like dealer websites? Like what's the thing that drives your business?
I would say probably cons because I'm such a big person with when it comes to interaction and face-to-face conversation, even Zoom like this, it's a lot better than me texting somebody or emailing somebody. Um, and also you can actually get a gauge of what the person's like, but also as an artist, I can draw in front of you, I can show you what I can do, I can show you a portfolio, you can see the work in your hands for yourself rather than me just sending you a file on the computer.
Mhm.
So kind of one of the things I started doing now is at shows, instead of just doing smaller commissions or 11 or like comics or sketch covers and all that is I've started trying to bring a large piece to work on at the show. That way, if a retailer looks by and they see like this big piece that I'm working on,
Hmm.
might catch their eye, might start conversation with people, or from a consumer point of view, hey, that's an artist who's doing a really cool piece that I can see from far away, and I can come back every couple of times and see the progress and all that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my big thing is I've always loved cons because of just being in front of people.
Yeah. That's awesome. What's the biggest piece that you've had on display?
Biggest I've had on display. I usually work on 15 by 20 illustration board with an 11 by 17 working area. There was a very short period of time I had a piece. It was 30 by 20.
Oh wow, that's big.
It was big and it was excuse me, obnoxious to cart around. So I stopped bringing it to shows, and also I feel like my style changed a little bit since then. But
Okay.
that was probably the biggest I ever brought.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, like I collect canvases piece as well, but you also know I collect comic books, so it's always good to kind of like see the different flavors of how people interpret their characters, right? Speaking of which, I don't think I asked you this, but who's your favorite comic book character?
Oh, are we going off company or just in general?
Just in general, like
Just in
of
general,
all time, your favorite.
probably Judge Dredd,
Nice.
which
Okay.
is a weird one because
Yeah.
in the U.S. people just think of the Eagle comics or that first issue, but like Judge Dredd's probably my favorite character,
Yeah.
hands down.
The Sylvester Stallone one or just the comic book?
I didn't. I liked Stallone's. I liked Urban's a little bit more, but
Yeah.
I think the comic's probably the best one.
Yeah. Yeah. I am the law.
Yeah.
So, it's always good to kind of like catch up and see like where you're going next. So I know that we're recording in May, but I don't know exactly when this is going to post. It might post in June. So what's the rest of your year look like for cons? Like, do you have things lined up already?
So rest of the year for cons. Last weekend in May, so I know this will probably end up in June, but all that. I'm going to Niagara Falls Comic Con. In June, I'll be at Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'll also be in Nickel City Con in Buffalo. July, I've applied for a couple cons. I'm still waiting to hear back from. There's one in Rochester I usually go to as well called Empire Comic Fest. August, I'll be at Terrificon again, and then
I'll see you
maybe
there.
one of yeah, I was hoping I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Maybe one other in August, and then last one I have confirmed is Baltimore Comic Con. That one's kind of been like one of my favorites to go to as well.
Nice. And I'm sure that you're going to plan more after that, but like, how do you balance it, right? Like, are you doing this full time or do you have like a side gig? Like, how do you balance life and being an artist?
So I do a lot outside of comic books. So I'm an art teacher. I teach 7th through 12th grade at a private school called Notre Dame. Um, so I do that full time. Then I'm a cross country and track coach. So that's like another hour and a half to 2 hours on my day, and then competitions and all that. And then I do comic books. So it's nice because convention season really picks up in the summer, and I have off for like almost 3 months in summer. So a lot of my time goes to that in the summer. And then the school is actually very forgiving when it comes to me taking days off to go to conventions. So, like for example, if hey, I have a show in Baltimore. Okay, you can use a couple off days for Thursday, Friday, and then when just come back on Monday. Or for Heroes, it's during like our region's testing week or our final exams. So there we can move my schedule around so they know they're not going to proctor me on those days, and they'll just proctor me heavier later in the finals week and all that.
Mhm.
But the school has been super helpful when working around my schedule, and also, hey, like I just got asked to go to this like 2 weeks in advance and I'm sorry, but they've been super accommodating and helpful. And then I also work a summer job just to get some extra cash and that's just part-time, so he works around my hours as well.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, you got like a famed artist working for you at the school. That gotta say something, you know. So
Oh
it's
yeah, the
something.
kids love it.
Yeah.
It's like the one day they were joking and they're like, "Mr. Bruggman, can you sign my yearbook?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then the one kid was like, "Sorry, I don't sign yearbooks. It's $10." I'm like, "I charge more for that for my autograph." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not joking. Like, people pay for me to sign my autograph." And they're like, "No, they don't." I'm like, you want to see?" And then they'll like, I'll show them like a quick snippet of a live stream or something. They're like, "Oh my gosh, like people actually like think you're a celebrity or something." I'm like, kind of, not really, somewhere in between, but I'm like, no, like I'm not just like, hey, I do art and teach art. I'm like trying to make it as an artist.
Yeah,
So
these kids don't understand. They don't understand the struggle.
no, well, sometimes they do because I'm a little nitpicky with some of their drawings, but they've it's nice seeing the kids progress, but also whenever I have something like coming out for like, for example, I'll put like my next convention on the whiteboard and then like a countdown to it, and they get all excited because then they know they have a substitute, but also I'll show them cool pictures and all that. Or like if I have a book announcement, um, I talk with the retailers. I'm like, hey, I'm going to show some kids at school first. So technically, like the first ones to find out about my covers, other than like my family who I'm working, who like critique me, is usually the students I teach. So they can kind of get like a little sneak preview out of everything too.
Nice. No, I mean it involves them in the process, right? So it could grow them and make like possibly a future artist out of them and wanting to follow in your footsteps. So
Oh yeah, totally.
so in that, right? A lot of times I ask questions in this sense where, you know, if you had to give a child either that you're teaching or a child out there that eventually wants to become somebody like you and be able to do a lot of the art and kind of like, you know, working comic books, you know, I know you've given other advice, but this is somebody that's like now trying to build up that dream to eventually become an artist. What kind of advice would you give them to like build their confidence or to improve their art?
I we just had a conversation about this today. So like the context of like how the conversation came about, I give all my art students final exams
Mhm.
and they hate me for it. Um, and I make the photo way challenging than they'd expect or they're used to, and they kind of throw a fit. I'm like, all right, the way I look at it is the way you get better at drawing is you do it more. And the more you get drawing, the more you'll get confident with it, the more you want to talk about it, the more you want to go off and share it. So like my art classes are very drawing heavy, and I always try and challenge them to do just a little bit better each time. So, and I even apply that to like even myself today, like how can I keep drawing and keep drawing things differently or challenge myself to draw more? And the big thing that also comes along with that is how can I pass that knowledge on to people? How can I, if I can draw something, how can I teach somebody to draw a certain way or draw a certain thing? Because at the end of the day, like all this knowledge and skill is super wonderful, but if I can't pass that on or do anything else with it other than just show off that I can draw, is it really that useful?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's imperative that we always teach forward, right? Because I mean you're never going to be in the business forever into the sense where you're going to be making covers. I mean, you know, unless you want to, but eventually you're going to want to retire, right? I mean, a lot of us that are still kind of like going to cons. We see all those people that like we love their art, and some of these people, you know, they get burnt out. They don't do as much art anymore. They kind of so they leave room for all these new artists to come to make their way, right? Um,
Yeah.
when it comes to like burnout and like self doubt and stuff like that, you know, what do you ever run into that? And then if you do, how do you handle some of the things that like whether that be artist block, if you will, or anything like that? Like what do you deal with when it comes to stuff like that?
I get that all the time, like self-doubt and all that. And for me, I'm very hard on myself sometimes. And the way I kind of deal with it is sometimes just stepping away for like an hour or two to do something else and clear your head helps out so much, or moving on to like a different piece or taking a break from it. and then coming back at it at another attempt
Yeah.
has been really helpful. So like for me, a break from drawing is going on a run and running for like a half hour to an hour, and then cleaning up, showering, and then coming back like a fresh head into it. Or if that doesn't work, sometimes it's just putting your head down and just pushing through it. And that happens a lot too, where I'm like, does this look good? Does it not look good? I'm like, just the ugly phase, just keep pushing through it. And then, okay, it's starting to come together. Um, it's one of the things I've kind of struggled more with in the past like year or so, as I want to try and push this closer to being more of a full-time gig.
Yeah. No, I mean, that and that choice of, do I leave? Do I go? Like, is this going to be my career, or is it still going to be my hobby? Trust me, I deal with that on a daily basis myself. I'm an IT professional by day, and by night I do this stuff. So it's something that it's like, it's crazy how we make the time for the hobbies and for those passions of ours. And then eventually, if we ever get that opportunity that we could actually make our hobbies into full-time jobs. I mean, I know there's far and in between, but I know a lot of people that have taken that plunge and they're much happier doing it. So, I believe I spoke to Kevin on our last episode, and he kind of really was adamant about, when he did it himself, he was, one of the best moves that he made for himself. So, I'm sure that he's spoken to you about that many a times.
Oh yeah, he tells me all about it all the time, and I'm like, hey, like I'm in a little bit of a different situation than you. I would love to do it, but like a little different. But no,
Yeah.
we bounce ideas off each other all the time about stuff. So
Yeah, awesome, man. And John, listen, thank you again for allowing me to interview you. I want to kind of give you a huge amount of space right now. If you have any final words for anybody that's out there that would like to, support you, follow you, show some of the things that are available to purchase, any works that you might have coming down the pipeline, anything like that, what do you got?
you can reach me on Instagram at John Bruggman, Facebook, same thing, John Bruggman. Whatnot usernames at Bruggman. Oh gosh, there's a lot. I got a new cover coming out at the end of the month for Fame or Tribute Wes Craven. Super limited copies of that. I am working on an art book for Heroes Con. I'm gonna have a big piece I'm gonna try and put in the charity auction for that. And then eventually the goal is to try and get my own book out, like story and all that. Just right now trying to keep up with commissions and things like that has been taking some time up. But if you ever want a commission, feel free to hit me up. I'm open to any idea. Well, 90% of ideas at this point in life. But yeah, I'm here to draw and try and be here for as long as I can be doing it.
Awesome. Thanks, John. I appreciate it. So,
Of course.
thank you for allowing me to interview you. I really appreciate it. And hopefully a lot of the people kind of check out some of these podcasts because it's important. If you'd like to support John and his endeavors, I'm going to share the links in the actual videos that we have on YouTube. We're going to also share our short clips on Facebook and Instagram. So if you see those, the best way to support these artists, comic book creators, and writers, and art, like pretty much anybody in this industry that I'm interviewing, is to share the interviews, follow their pages, and really kind of show your support by either commenting, liking, and doing what you need to do to make that algorithm work for them, right? I'm doing all these videos gratis. That means for free. It's all a part of what Icon Comic Con stands for, which is the independent artists and comic book creators out there and comic book vendors. So definitely check us out on November the 1st. John, you're always welcome as usual.
I'll try and be there.
Yeah, if you come, you come. I'd greatly appreciate it. Just let me know ahead of time, all right?
Yes, will do.
But again, Icon Comic Con is November the 1st, 2025. It's going to be at the Fishkill Rec Center in Fishkill, New York, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We have a smorgasbord of different giveaways. It's only $5 for anybody that's 12 and up. Anybody 11 and down is free. We also have a whole bunch of different artists that are going to be there. We have at least 5 guest artists, 2 voice actors, a couple podcasters, and rest of them are going to be like comic book vendors, Funko Pops, what have you. We really try to bring it back to like the root of the love of comics. So you definitely want to check it out. John, thank you again. This is the Behind the Comic Books podcast. Guys, check us out Mondays at 12 p.m. on the YouTube. Check it out. All right. We're going to the next one. Take
Have
it
a good
easy.
one.